In February 2022, the second most powerful military on the planet went to war with the 22nd. The math was supposed to be simple. 3 days, the analysts said, maybe a week. Instead, that second most powerful military got stopped cold outside a capital city it never captured, by a country it outranked by 20 places. So today, let's ask the uncomfortable question. Who's the most overrated military in the world? Because the real answer isn't a country at all. I'm Jet Royce. This is The Grid. Every year, indices like Global Firepower rank the world's militaries. GFP scores well over 140 nations using more than 60 individual factors. Troop numbers, tanks, aircraft, warships, budgets, even oil reserves and available manpower, and blends them into a single tidy power index score, where the closer you get to zero, the stronger you supposedly are. Going into 2022, these rankings were near unanimous. Russia sat at number 2, behind only the United States. Ukraine was somewhere in the 20s. On paper, it wasn't a contest. It was a foregone conclusion. And that's the problem with paper. Paper doesn't bleed, doesn't run out of fuel, and doesn't get a radio call that the plan just fell apart. February 24th, 2022. Russia attacks on multiple fronts at once, and the centerpiece is audacious. Elite Russian airborne troops, the VDV, air assault Hostomel Airport, just northwest of Kyiv. The plan: seize the runway, fly in reinforcements, and take the capital in a lightning strike. It's the kind of bold opening move that looks brilliant in a briefing room. It failed. Ukrainian resistance turned the airfield into a killing ground, the runway was wrecked, and the air bridge to Kyiv never opened. Then came the image that defined the war's opening weeks. A Russian military column reported at roughly 64 kilometers, around 40 miles long, stalled on the roads north of Kyiv. Not destroyed in one heroic battle, just stuck, out of fuel, out of food, bottlenecked on single roads, unable to move off-road into the spring mud. And this is where the ranking starts to lie to you, because none of what went wrong was measured by the index: logistics. Russia's army leaned on railways and simply didn't have the truck fleet to supply a deep, fast armored thrust far from rail lines. The tanks could drive faster than the supply chain could feed them. Maintenance. There were widely circulated reports of rotted tires and neglected vehicles. The cheap Chinese tires story. Be precise here. This became a popular explanation, but it rests largely on open source analysis and anecdote, not a confirmed Russian admission. We flag it as a plausible symptom of deeper maintenance and corruption problems, not a proven headline. Command culture. Russia's army is built around top-down control with a weak professional NCO, non-commissioned officer, backbone. In Western armies, sergeants make battlefield decisions. In Russia's system, that initiative often has to come from officers, which is part of why Russia lost an unusually high number of senior commanders. Multiple generals were reported killed near the front lines because they had to go forward to fix problems junior leaders couldn't. Communications. There were credible reports of Russian troops using unsecured channels, even local cell networks, and accounts that a secure ERA cryptophone system underperformed in the field, in part because it depended on the very 3G infrastructure Russian forces had been busy destroying. Treat the specifics as reported, not confirmed doctrine, but the broader breakdown in secure comms is well documented. The losses piled up fast. The open source project Oryx, which only counts vehicles it can verify with a photo or video, documented thousands of Russian vehicles lost, including over 1,000 tanks within roughly the first year. And that's a floor, not a total. Visually confirmed means the real number is higher. Oryx undercounts by design. Casualty figures are genuinely contested, So we won't pretend to a single number. Estimates of Russian dead and wounded in the war vary enormously by source and by date, running into the hundreds of thousands by Western and Ukrainian counts, with Russia itself disclosing far less. We show you the range. We don't pick a favorite. By late March, Russia pulled back from the Kyiv axis entirely. The number 2 military on Earth had failed at its primary objective. So was Russia weak? No. It absorbed staggering losses and kept fighting. Overrated is the honest word. Not weak, overrated. The ranking promised something the army couldn't deliver. The untested giant, China. Now hold that thought and look at the country everyone's watching next, China. The PLA fields the world's largest active military by personnel, and by ship count, the world's largest navy. On paper, it's a colossus, and it ranks at the very top of every index. But here's the fact that should sit with you. China's last major war was in 1979, a brief, bloody border conflict with Vietnam. And it did not go well. Battle-hardened Vietnamese forces bloodied a PLA that took heavy casualties and exposed serious weaknesses. That was over 4 decades ago, which means almost no one in the PLA today has fought a real war. Every soldier, every commander, every system, untested in modern combat. China's own leadership seems to know it. Xi Jinping has repeatedly warned the PLA about peace disease, the idea that a military which hasn't fought grows soft, complacent, and unready. And from 2023 onward, a wave of anti-corruption purges hit the upper ranks, including senior figures tied to the rocket force, which oversees China's strategic missiles. The official reason is corruption. Analysts disagree on what it means. Is it Xi tightening control, or a sign that readiness and procurement are rotted by graft? Honestly, we don't know. And that uncertainty is the story. So is China overrated or underrated? The truthful answer is the one rankings can never give you: untested. The number looks enormous. Whether it fights like the number, nobody on Earth actually knows, not even China itself. And the eternal number 1? The United States. No serious analyst disputes American dominance. The carriers, the air power, the global reach are real. So how can the strongest military in human history be overrated? Because here's the paradox. The bigger your advantage, the worse it looks when you still don't win. And the US, with more money, more technology, and more firepower than any force in history, has a habit of not winning. It wins the battles and loses the wars. The US never lost a major battle in Vietnam. It won the conventional invasion of Iraq in about 3 weeks. It crushed every stand-up fight the Taliban offered, and it lost all 3 wars anyway. Afghanistan ending after 20 years, with the Taliban back in power within days of the 2021 withdrawal. A ranking measures who wins the firefight. War is decided by who wins the politics. Those are not the same thing. The patience problem. The US is a casualty-averse democracy with an election clock. Its enemies often have infinite patience and nothing to lose. You can be militarily unbeatable and still be simply outweighted. No index has a column for national willpower. 3 weeks to destroy Saddam's army in 2003. Then 8 years bleeding in an occupation it had no plan for. The hammer is the finest on earth. The problem is that most of these wars were never nails. And here's the one almost nobody talks about: the magazine depth problem. In repeated war games run by the think tank CSIS, simulating a US-China war over Taiwan, the United States burned through its entire inventory of key long-range anti-ship missiles within the first week, and expended thousands of long-range missiles in 3 weeks. Those missiles run about $3 million each, and the US doesn't have enough of them. In the Red Sea, the US has been shooting down cheap drones worth a few $1,000s using interceptors that cost $1 to $2 million each. The F-35 program's lifetime cost is now estimated above $2 trillion. You can be the richest force in history and still be on the wrong side of the maths in a long war. And the deepest irony, the US hasn't fought a true peer since 1945. Every war since Korea has been against a far weaker enemy. So even American dominance at the very top end is assumed, not proven. The same uncertainty we aimed at China. In fairness, much of this failure is political, not military. Soldiers don't pick the wars. And no other nation can do a fraction of what the US does globally. The point isn't that America is weak. It's that most powerful on paper and will win your war are not the same sentence. So back to our question. The most overrated military on Earth. It was never Russia or China or America. The most overrated thing in defense is the ranking itself. Because here's what an index like GFP counts well. Hardware, bodies, budgets, things you can put in a spreadsheet. And here's what it can't count. The things that actually decided every war we just talked about. The quality of your sergeants, whether your trucks have fuel, whether your troops believe in the fight, whether your radios work, whether anyone's ever been shot at before. History is full of this. The Winter War of 1939 to 1940. The Soviet Union, a giant, invaded tiny Finland and got mauled for months by a vastly smaller force that knew the terrain and refused to break. The Six-Day War in 1967. Israel, outnumbered on paper, won in under a week. Vietnam. And Russia in 2022. The rankings aren't useless. They're a snapshot of potential. But potential isn't performance. A spreadsheet can tell you who should win. It cannot tell you who will. So next time you see a flashy graphic ranking the world's armies 1 through 20, remember Hostomel. Remember the convoy that ran out of fuel 40 miles from its target. The number told one story. The war told another. So here's my question to you. Which military do you think is the most overrated? And which one is quietly underrated? Tell me in the comments. I read them. If this gave you a sharper way to look at military power, subscribe to The Grid. We go past the numbers. I'm Jet Royce. I'll see you in the next one.